Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Guillaume Gerard. I'm Chief Operating at Agatha, and it's my pleasure to welcome today Giulia Bignami from Optos. Welcome, Giulia.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you for accepting our invitation. So, Giulia, can you introduce yourself and tell me more about your role at Optos?
Yeah, sure. I'm Giulia Bignami, Assistant Clinical Trial Manager at Optos, supporting the clinical team in the management of clinical trials within the clinical operations.
What role did you have on the Agatha project when we initially set up the application at Optos?
So I was actually there from the very start because I joined Optos in 2019, which is pretty much when Optos adopted Agatha as an electronic trial master file provider. So as I said, I was there from the start, evaluating different providers, then running the pilot with Agatha, and then finally supporting with the validation, internal validation of the software, and then with the final implementation.
And how did you get interested in clinical trials, clinical operations?
So I actually started with more of an interest in imaging as part of what was my sort of academic background. And as I joined Optos, then I got more and more interested in the sort of project management side of things. And as a result of that, it's where I am just now in supporting management of clinical trials and deliverables related to that.
So can you tell us a little bit more about Optos? You know, what's Optos business, what's Optos mission also as a company?
Yeah, so Optos is a global medical device company that was founded by Douglas Anderson with the goal to make a patient-friendly device that could capture ultra-wide field images of the retina, which is the back of our eyes, and which you can see here.
Okay.
Today, millions of patients around the world have benefited from OptoMap retinal imaging.
So you're selling your product everywhere in the world, basically.
Yeah, it's a worldwide market. Yes.
If we go back to the clinical operations, can you tell us a little bit more about like the clinical trials that you're running at Optos and where they're located? And of course, I understand you're going to share all of the details, but probably some details would be appreciated.
Yeah, sure. So as a medical device company, we have both pre-market and post-market clinical trials, and they are related to the generation of evidence that's supporting the development of each device within their clinical development plan. We have them in Europe, across Europe, and in the United Kingdom, as well as in the United States.
Regarding your collaboration with Agatha, so we started with Optos in 2019, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct.
Can you explain how the collaboration started between our companies?
Yeah, so the collaboration between Optos and Agatha, as you said, started about 4 years ago when Optos was looking for a new provider for the electronic trial master file to improve on the systems in use for the management of clinical trial documentation. And we've obviously assessed quite a variety of providers, but eventually we settled on Agatha because it was the one provider that proved to have the best fit in terms of requirements for our clinical team.
What requirements did you have at that time specifically, if you can name a few?
First off, we wanted a cloud-based system because as I said, with clinical teams located around the world, and in particular, both in the United Kingdom and the United States, we wanted to have the possibility of having access whenever we were and whenever we wanted. So that was one crucial and important item. On top of that, we wanted a very systematic filing structure that could still be customizable to our needs. In a lot of cases, these filing structures, as you just said, are tailored to pharma companies, and we wanted to have a system that could be customizable to our needs as a medical device company. So Agatha's customization offer was definitely a plus for us in that respect. And we also wanted an efficient system just because of the sheer volume of documentation that we need to process. And again, this was something that was really important for Optos and that Agatha could provide.
In terms of adjustment of the TMF reference model to medical device needs, you mean like it's the type of documents, like you have additional types in the medical device world that you need to add, separate metadata, things of this nature. Is that right?
Yeah, the filing structure itself needed to be customized a bit to take into account all the items that you just mentioned.
So regarding the setup and of Agatha, also, what was your experience?
We started with a trial period, a sort of a pilot, when we got the chance to further test the software and assess the functionalities against our requirement specification, which was crucial for us as a very first stage. After this, there was a great collaborative support and effort in the development of the templates. So the Optos templates that would then be the ones to be used within the system for the setup of workspaces. So as I said, at this initial stage, it was really crucial for us to have great support from Agatha's customer support team with regards to both our requirements and our customization needs. Then prior to implementation and deployment, we also went through an additional internal software validation that allow us to point out any functionalities to be sort of further improved and optimized in collaboration with Agatha. And finally, we got to the stage of sort of training our users and then obviously deployment of the software. And this training stage was really important for us because it gave the chance to all the users to familiarize themselves with the different functionalities and make sure that could have like the best experience on Agatha as well. And overall feedback that we received at that training stage was that Agatha, from a standard user perspective, was very user-friendly as well. Yeah.
So you have been using the Agatha for quite a while now. What improvement or changes have you noticed since the implementation?
I would say that compared to the very first versions that we worked with, we are now seeing much more speed and efficiency within the software overall. And we were also pleased with the constant improvement in functionalities and also with how responsive Agatha's customer support is whenever, you know, something goes wrong or there is an issue or something that needs fixing or customizing. We've always been able to find someone to help us and in a very responsive manner.
A couple of years ago, you also added like additional processes in addition to the core eTMF functions, right? Yeah. I think you added like QC check as well as PMCF post-market surveillance processes. If you can speak a little bit about those, please.
Yep. So as we kept using Agatha, we found ourselves needing a few more functionalities to be added on to support clinical operations. And so the very first that we added on was the ISF functionality, so the remote monitoring one, which includes the sort of quality check process. So this was actually very impactful for us during the pandemic, because that's when travel restrictions were in place and our clinical research associates couldn't travel to the site to monitor in-person documentation as they would normally do. So the addition of the remote monitoring investigator site file functionality helped us a lot to be able to complete and start up new trials and new clinical sites as the pandemic was on. So that was very impactful for us in terms of the functionality.
On the ISF side, what was the adoption on the clinical sites? You know, when you deploy a solution and you ask your clinical sites not to send you documents by email anymore, and that the monitoring visits are going to be more limited, maybe, then it's a big change, right, for clinical sites. So how did they react to that?
So we made sure that the sites were aware of the change and fully trained as well. So as I said, training is a crucial part for the deployment of any trial master file, and obviously this applies also to the ISF remote monitoring functionality. So we pulled together a training plan for the sites to make sure that they were fully trained on how to use Agatha, and we're able to upload documentation and respond to any monitoring findings through Agatha. So this has been for us a very positive experience overall. Sites found Agatha very easy to use and could easily sort of log in and complete their tasks as expected.
So, and then you were about to continue on PMCF and processes. If you could also speak about a little bit about this one too, please.
Yeah, sure. So as part of the European Union medical device regulation requirements, the post-market clinical follow-up studies had to be set up for a few of our devices. And again, we had great support from Agatha in developing a customized workspace for this, where our sites are able to log in and complete and sign off the surveys that are required as data, post-market data, to fully comply with EU MDR requirements as part of the PMCF, post-market clinical follow-up process.
Can you explain a little bit that process for people not knowing about it, what it consists in, and so on, please?
Yeah. So this is data gathering for devices that are already on the market to make sure that they are still within the safety and performance parameters. So essentially what we do is we send out surveys where we ask relevant questions related to the performance and safety of the devices, and then we collect all the feedback, and that's part of the PMCF, the post-market clinical follow-up study. And obviously this has to do with reaching out to sites and then having a traceable way of recording all of these surveys, having them signed off with an audit log and all the rest of it. And so this was something that could be achieved thanks to the support we had in the development of a tailored Agatha workspace for this, with like the surveys of setup, the forms, and the customization around that, where the sites were able to like select from a drop-down menu or add on their comments, and then finally sign off with an electronic signature as well, the whole of the survey to be submitted to us.
Regarding the collaboration with Agatha, how do you see it evolving in the future?
So as I said, we have been working with Agatha for the best part of 4 years now. We see our collaboration in the future mostly focusing on fine-tuning the efficiencies of the system and maybe considering, you know, possibly new functionalities or add-on if we think that those could support our processes. We definitely are going to base that on our experience and also on the feedback that we gathered both internally from our clinical research associates, clinical trial managers, and externally from users at clinical sites.
What advice would you give to other companies considering implementing a product like Agatha?
So I would definitely say to have absolute clarity on the user requirement specification prior to any trial of the software. It's really important because that way any requests, requirements, customizations can be tailored to the usage profile. In addition to that, I would say to factor in an extensive training for all the users, because as I said, Agatha has different levels of users. They all need different types of training. It's really important within the implementation of the software to factor in this time to make sure that users have the chance to familiarize with the functionalities at their level of usage and know how to make best use of them.
Any final thoughts or comments that you'd like to share about your experience with Agatha?
I have to say it has been a very positive experience. Agatha allowed Optos to improve on our business efficiencies, and we had great support throughout this process from Agatha every step of the way.
Giulia, thank you very much for your participation to this interview and looking forward to our continued collaboration.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.